right, what's going on, Shawn? We are back for another episode of the Truth Ball, man. How is it going?
Yeah, going good, man. Pretty busy, but going good.
Good, man. I know we've covered some good ground on these episodes, and obviously, when we're doing these episodes, and we are talking about this earlier, off screen, off the mic, that we want to provide information and truth bombs and lessons that you can use no matter when you listen to this. So the concept is like, if you look at some of the best people that have left us behind with knowledge, whether it's Plato or Aristotle or Socrates, all these guys that we still listen, and read about today, their advice is timeless. Like, you don't have to exist in their time period to understand their advice. Even in 2020, it's still pretty relevant.
Right.
And so one of the things that we want to do with these truth bombs is something that you can take on and you can listen to and understand no matter when you're going to be listening and watching this, maybe it's many years from now. But of course, this is happening in the backdrop for when we're recording this during a lot of like transition and changes that are happening to the country and the world actually as we speak, in almost pretty much the fastest transition we've ever seen within I think the global economy, I think ever. So within a few months, pretty much from like March, and it's July now, and the entire world has changed probably forever for a long time. So, that's going to be the backdrop of this. But there's a lot of lessons I think we can learn from this time. And I think we want to focus on that because, people watching this, no matter when, are going to look at this and be like, yeah, man, this stuff is really right. So I wanted to delve in that a little bit, man. And, how do you feel about the whole situation? We're in COVID. Like, what do you think are some of the lessons that you've really learned and that you feel like we should focus more on?
Yeah. So, right off the bat, I tend to think about cash flow. If you're a business owner, that would be like number one. If you don't have a business, savings, because you really don't know, like, even though you don't think something like this will happen to where you don't have an income from your normal job or whatever, it can happen. And we're experiencing that right now. And this might be once in a lifetime thing, but you have to be prepared for it. So, from a business standpoint, I would definitely say cash flow, like you need some sort of like savings or whatever you want to call it to float you through. And, we've talked about that a few times, but I think that would be number one. And then number two would be, have other ways to earn income, multiple revenue streams. And, for my business, I think I've established myself online pretty heavily, especially within the last year or so. So even though the retail store was down, I want to say like 80, 85% in sales, my online revenue stream really carried me through that and actually excelled my overall store presence, on the back end of COVID, at least for now. If it's the back end, it looks like it's kind of getting a scare again. I'm not totally sure, but a second revenue stream or even a third or fourth, you just need to be very diversified in how you earn income.
Yeah, and I think there's some good takeaways there. I think, we always have transitions every, let's say, a century or so, where we move away from one economy to the other. And I've talked about this before, but we used to be, up until the 1800s, we were in a different type of society. And all of a sudden, the economy changed. We went through the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s,
Right.
and the means of production and how the economy and like how we make money, how wealth is generated changed. And there was a big transition, right? And we were undergoing that anyways, regardless of COVID or not. Like, it was changing. We're moving into digital economy, and the digital economy is the gig economy where, we don't have traditional jobs anymore. And that was already changing for the last 10, 15 years pretty heavily with the advent of the internet. And I feel like COVID has changed
Right.
that, quite a bit, and has accelerated that process, and would have probably taken 3 to 5 years and has done it in like a few months, right? And so I want people to recognize that, because sometimes things happen so rapidly and we're just not, we can't grasp it, because, sometimes it takes a long time before a fact occurs and before we realize it has occurred. Like, we as humans,
Right.
we're sometimes a little delayed. So I think for a long time, there was this like agreement between big banks, big corporations, and everyday citizens. The agreement is, we're going to give you a job. You're going to get just enough to get by. We have a nice little house, a few square foot, and you can go on a vacation once or twice a year, and you can have a decent life, and maybe you have some nice things here and there, and then you die, and then you're fine. And that was the agreement, right?
Right.
So I'll give you 50, 40 years of working. You're going to keep me and pay me just enough so I can survive and have a family. And that's the agreement. A few years ago, corporations and, big banks, especially tech companies, said, guys, look, this deal is over. We don't do this anymore. We will not take on employees for 30, 40 years. We won't train them. We're not going to invest in you.
Right.
We have a global economy. I can do Fiverr, Upwork. I can hire someone for a little bit. We all used, contractors. We don't,
Right.
why do I have to use employees? And so this whole deal was over, like overnight, pretty much. This whole deal is over. Like this doesn't happen. So, many of us are still living in this kind of traditional flow where we take a job and then we're kind of set. Like I know a lot of people celebrate, and I think, which is good, you should celebrate. It's really awesome when you do get employed. But I think there's always this concept now that since this deal is off and you're more easily replaceable, which is going to happen in a global economy where their access towards good employment pool is, 100 times more than before than your local locality. You as an employee or you as someone just trying to survive, you're going to have to hustle more and you're going to have to build skill sets quickly so that you don't have to rely on one source of income. And this has happened very rapidly, in my opinion. And a lot of us haven't gotten the memo yet. It hasn't been passed around. And so, I want to use this platform, in the Truth Bomb, to wake people up, to explain all these things that we're seeing today. When you go on YouTube, Instagram, I think there's a lot of scam about self-development and stuff, but there is some merit to spending time to learn skill sets that maybe you don't think are necessary, that you think are optional and nice to have. A lot of the nice to have skill sets, like investing is only for rich people. Only the super smart people think about stocks, or like learning digital e-com is just for like some nerdy people out there. Is not the case anymore.
Right.
Learning and self-development is no longer an option. It's a necessity. And that's one of my takeaways in today's Truth Bomb.
Yeah, for sure. And, something that you kind of pointed out there, it's like people need to not rely on others for their income. So, you have your traditional job that you work 30, 40, 50 years at, and you're used to getting that, paycheck every week. And it's like, you should have a backup plan to where, you're relying on yourself. You determine your own outcome. You're not waiting for some pandemic to happen and then you're out of luck. So yeah, that's a very good point. There's plenty of things that you can do, especially with online social media technology, that you could easily start a side hustle at the very minimum, and generate, other ways to create income.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like a lot more people, they just kill time and they have a lot of free time to do stupid shit.
Right.
And whereas, you have older people and they're like, when I was a kid, I think every generation says that, but it's kind of interesting because I feel like, if you were from a previous generation, you actually can spend more time on leisure activities when you have downtime, like in the weekends, because you have a job that's going to be stable and more likely than not, you're going to be there for a while. Whereas now I feel like the luxury of enjoyment and leisure actually is almost disappearing because there's this constant tension. I was like, dude, okay, well, I'm not working my job right now. Well, I better be blogging. I better be podcasting. I better be learning about investment. I better be listening to 50 podcasts. And so I think for some of us, we get totally overwhelmed. Like, what do I can't rest right now. Whereas I think some other people are like totally the opposite end of the spectrum. They're like, oh man, yeah, I do my 9 to 5 and then I just go home and, hit the snooze button. And I'm afraid of that because we don't know yet like what's gonna happen to our generation that's just like, I don't want to invest in buying a house because commitment sucks. I don't want to learn stocks. I don't want to invest. And like I know many people I went to college with, bright people, but they don't really have a job. They don't have like a career. They have nothing really going for them. Like I always wonder, like, what are you gonna do when you're 50? Like, are you gonna like sell weed on this? Like, what are you actually gonna do? Like, I'm worried about them. I don't know what they're gonna do. Like, I'm really worried. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, and so I think back in the day, maybe you could have a little more leisure because there is more stability, but in a country and in a world where there's no economic stability, and COVID has shown us there really isn't.
Yeah.
I think like leisure is a real luxury.
Yeah, for sure. And like I mentioned, with social media and the ability to just use Google and YouTube to like figure shit out and figure out ways to generate new income. It's like when the pandemic first went down, the market dropped crazy, so all stocks were super, super cheap. And there's several of my friends that got in on stocks and they're just like, well, what are you buying? I'll buy what you buy. Just tell me when to buy. It's like, dude, just Google it. You know what I mean? Like YouTube, it's so simple to learn other skills now. You just, the information's there. It's just people are too lazy to find it.
Yeah, it's all there, but again, we don't even, people say this is the information age. I actually think it's the distraction age. There's like so much distraction on the cell phone too, and like everywhere. I think there's too much distraction. So I think the people that are going to win are the people who are able to separate the noise from the signal from the noise, or vice versa. because
sure.
there's a lot of noise. Can you find signals or not? Like if I'm watching YouTube, like there's garbage after, or am I going to start clicking on like, I don't know, cat or like I don't know, like videos or like prank videos, or am I going to use that appropriately? And it's very hard. So you need way more willpower. You need to spend way more time. You need to invest way more of your leisure time, and you cannot be distracted. You need way more focus. And so the people that are going to win is like, who of your friends right now? People ask me which of your friends do you think is going to do well. I was like, whichever friend is able to separate signal from noise. They're like, there's a lot of noise and I see the signal, and everything else I can separate, because that's the world right now. We have a cell phone recording this. There is so much distraction on the cell phone, dude. Like you can actually sit a whole day in a corner in your room and just be on your cell phone and you can like actually pass the whole day just shooting shit on your phone. Like there's so much distraction on this little device. There's also the world's information in your pocket. Like there's information for you to become a millionaire. There's information for you to become a billionaire. There's information for you to become the next president. Like it's all there on the cell phone, and you can do it through there. We have a president that uses Twitter all day to build his entire campaign, like in 2016. So, I mean, this can all happen right now. And so, I think being more strategic and being an investor, I think is what I feel like the quote unquote, as much as I hate this word, but like the new normal. People talk about like wearing masks. I don't care about that crap. But what I think the good part of like the new normal should be is like everyone needs to be an investor, because the consumers are going to lose post 2020. And investors are going to keep winning like they always have. But now you're going to see it more than ever, because those who can invest their time, money, resources, energy are going to be better off than those who just, waste it.
Yeah. I totally in agreement. And I think another aspect too is the ability to say no to distractions. Like you were bringing up, it's like a lot of people struggle with saying no to their friends of going out. I need to work on this craft or whatever. And I even struggle with that sometimes too. But there has to be a point in time to where you can say no and not explain yourself why, and focus on yourself. So I think that's a big part of it too, just distraction and the ability to say no.
Yeah, and this is hard too, because like when you don't know what to do and you don't need to invest, there's this concept of like the fear of missing out and taking every investment opportunity that exists.
Yeah.
And I think this is very tough. And, I think it can happen to the best of us. There was a point in time, like, you need to do blogging. I get a lot of people ask me, hey man, let's make some content. Let's do another pot. And it's like, at some point you're like, yeah, I'll do it. And I do a bunch of it. And at some point I know also like my best work is when I just do one or two of those things, because you have to learn to just be strategic about saying no. Yeah. And that's, I think, very, very difficult too. And I think that's one of the people ask sometimes on the stories, like, what's the best productivity hack that you can impart? And I said the best and the easiest one that you can do right now is just say no.
Say no, yeah, for sure.
And I think that's a hard part. It's hard to say no when you need to invest, but like, well, what should I invest in? So you get an opportunity, you want to take it up, right away.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, it's just with the distractions out there. I think it's just much easier. It's much easier to say yes. It really is at the end of the day. So yeah, I totally agree. It's like I said.
Yeah. So I guess like some takeaway tips, as we conclude here. So where do you start? Because I know I think you've mentioned before on this show that you do invest and you are into stocks, like you just said. Yeah. And so you do things outside of NutriFit. Like where do you start? Like, where do you find this information? Like, what do you do?
In like my family, my group of friends, close people that I'm close with, there's really not too many people that like are into investing. So like I was like the first one to really do anything like that in my group of people. So YouTube, it was like the biggest thing for me. That's how I've learned a lot of the aspects of my business too. YouTube. It's like that people always say YouTube, but like I feel like it's still undervalued to where like how much you can learn off of YouTube. But in a investing standpoint, YouTube is what I've used a lot. And really just like testing the market with like certain stocks you think are going to do well or not. But like, obviously you can't spend a lot with your test because you can get burned. One thing that you mentioned is that, as I was saying, learning to say no, but you're afraid to miss out on opportunities. And in the stock market, that's a huge way that you can get burned. So, a lot of new investors will follow stocks that are super hot, throw their money in it, and then it drops. So that's like one thing I learned very early on. But in general, YouTube was my main way of learning, anything that I know about the stock market, and just slowly taking your time and easing your way into it. So stock market, YouTube for me. But that would be my suggestion. I'm not sure how you really got started, but what were the tools that you used?
Yeah, I think the best tools, yeah, you can watch videos, you can, listen to podcasts. One of my favorite things to do is digital marketing. I was really just fascinated with it. That was my thing that I wanted to do and learn. And I think, when it comes to investing, digital marketing, so the first thing I think I always recommend is like, okay, you listen to us say that you got to learn some other skill sets. So what skill sets should you learn? Like, and my concept is like, I want to build something that's recession proof. So that's my KPI. So when I start a business, or when we're talking about business stuff, my concept is always like, how do we make this recession proof? How do we make this recession proof? And so, because
Right.
we have recessions on a cyclical basis. And so at the end of the day, like, you can have a business that does really well and then all their gains wiped out in 8 years, because that's when we usually have a recessionary cycle
Right.
every 8 to 15 years. And so I think about who wins in the macro. So if you have a big business, it's going to be there for 20 years, and it's going to take about 8 to 10 years to really be a force, right? That's where our average, probably a little longer. But within that 8, look at all the tech companies from like Uber to Facebook, all these, they haven't undergone a massive recession yet, because they were
Right.
big in 2009, 10 onwards. So the goal is like, if you look at the macro level, who's going to succeed? It's someone who has success for 25 plus years. Then you build the GMs and all these big companies, right? So
Right.
I'm always thinking about the average needs to be that you can win. That's fine, but you can't have all your wins be
Right.
washed out from a bad year. So
Yeah.
recession-proof thing. So there's recession-proof businesses. I'm very much focused on those, how to build those. And then the second thing is how to become a recession-proof person. And the way to do that is to really think about strategically, what are high-paying skill sets? If shit hits the fan, back in the day, our parents said, become a doctor, become a lawyer, whatever, because, if shit hits the fan, you always have a job. It's not always the
Right.
case now anymore with those, but you still high-paying skill sets. What are those? It's going to be digital marketing, videography, coding.
For sure.
It's going to be things like investing, finance, cash, accounting, like things that are high-paying skill sets that we need in today's digital economy. And
Right.
so the way I started this and I brought this topic here today was to say that we've switched from like an industrial really economy to like from a corporation-based economy to like a gig economy. And in the
Right.
gig economy, what are the skill sets needed to win? And you see these people that are winning right now, even on like, they make millions of dollars on social. Look at a guy like Gary Vee. He made a great business like selling wine,
Yeah.
but he didn't create $1 billion business. But obviously he's making all his income from videos, not from
Yeah.
his consulting
Right.
company. So they're winning because they understand in the gig economy the skill sets required to win. And that's where I would start. So think about what are the skill sets that you can do, you want to do, but the ones that are going to be high paying skill sets in the gig economy. So start there. Now, YouTube, podcasting, you get super submerged in a topic online from like a videos. That's honestly one of the best places to start. And then you put it to test. So when I got really into digital marketing, I was like, well, I don't have like the capital to start a massive business to test like $1 million in Facebook ads, but
Right.
just run something small. So I would do it. I would be like, I'll go college campus, see what there is, something to sell. I don't know, like a bike, something shitty, like whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll create like a little Shopify store. Back then, when we didn't have Shopify, it was like other WordPress I used to use, and then I used to run a Facebook ad, and I see I use a split test for like $2. Back then, it was
Right.
80 cents or so.
Yeah.
And then I would learn like that because it doesn't cost me anything. So I would learn and run low cost experiments and do them. If you want to get into stocks, there's a lot of stocks, and you can open a trading account. It's not very expensive to do that. A lot of them have a
Yeah.
commission-free trading for a lot of
Right.
trades too. So
Yeah.
you can buy a stock that's not very expensive, learn the basics. So learn it from, you can YouTube, audiobooks, whatever you're doing, and then also learn on the job. And I think the gig economy jobs are ones you have to do and you get better by doing. Whereas I think before in the past, it was kind of the same thing, but there's more of a theoretical, practical aspect to it. I was the top of my class by studying books. I'm a lawyer, and then I worked at I got a job at a big corporate law firm, paid a great salary, but I got that job by being good at books. I actually hadn't practiced a day in my life when I worked there, but I got a
Right.
job, so a little bit different. So application for me is huge.
Yeah. One thing I did want to bring up as far as like what I did when I first started too was kind of determine, how much you're willing to risk. Like okay, I have $5,000. If I lose it all, like I'm cool with that. Like I can survive without that. So like determine what you could possibly lose, and still be fine with. And then another thing is like I kind of determine which stocks are value stocks and which stocks are growth stocks. And like right now, I like to think about like growth stocks as stocks that are kind of outliers in their industry. So when I think right off the bat, like Tesla, they're more than just, people think of them as a car company, but they're a technology company. They're doing way more than GM and Ford, and that's why they're $1,500 a share and Ford is 15. So it's like you look for an outlier for like a growth stock. Another one would be Shopify, and in the e-commerce space, they're really the ones that are setting trends. So they're probably going to have the most growth, and they have tremendously, during the pandemic, especially. But that one or those kind of stocks, I feel like could be more risky if you buy in at, some of the peaks, because they can drop and pull back. But when you find a growth stock or a value stock, it's probably more stable, but you probably won't see as much growth. So something like, I don't know, that's been around for a while, like Chipotle or Starbucks, things like that have already really done their peak, but they're still going to gain in value. So that's kind of like two parts that I look at is growth versus value.
Yeah. I think, I mean, that's life too, right? So the question is whenever you invest, I mean, and we'll do an episode just on investing because it's a big passion of mine as well. But like, you have to always think about like, where has most of the value already been stripped out from the asset? And then you can still win because they're kind of turnkey, you know what to expect. Or where are you going to invest on something that like the value hasn't been stripped out yet, but you also might end up with zero. And so there's just like high risk, high reward, kind of a concept. But yeah, I think you have to generally like put aside what I call like an education fund. Like we are all okay spending a lot of money on college, but there's going to be money required to learn, and you can put the value and price to it. And so if you want to learn like investing and you make a couple of mistakes, you open up an account and it kind of sucked, or you did, I don't know, you just run some ads and it didn't work. Like I don't feel bad about it when I started because I'm like, well, I spent like 100 times more on a college education a semester. I'm not saying that those things are bad. I went through higher education, went through grad school, got my doctorate and stuff. So of course I value it, but I also know that education and for high paying skill sets, like we don't want to invest in those. And I speak to a lot of people who go to college and they don't want to invest in like, hey, like there's this book or an ebook or they don't want to pay that. And I was like, but why not? Like you can learn. Why would you want to buy a school book in college, but you wouldn't want to invest in yourself? It's a little bit strange. So investing in yourself is no longer optional. I think it's mandatory. And and the good thing about it is it's much cheaper than a college education. I can tell you that. So
for sure. Yeah. I mean, books are not very expensive. It's an easy way to go for sure.
Now, a little tip too, if you, a lot of these authors that write good ebooks aren't all like New York Times bestsellers. A lot of them are just, people who have some knowledge. And if you email them, be like, hey man, I'd love to promote your book. And could I get they'd give it to you for free. I've done that a few times because I've been like, hey, I have a big audience I want to give away some books to. And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. Here's a copy for like 2 months. You can rent it. They'd be more than happy to play with you like that. So.
Right. And imagine if you didn't go to college, you took that money and applied it towards self-education. I'd probably be so much farther than where I am today from just traditional college. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think about that. I think about that all the time. So that's why I know reading can help. I know talking to others can help, and that's another thing. Like we talked about in the last episode. Like the knowledge out there for like most of the stuff is not actually in books or in like traditional education yet. It's actually in people and conversations.
Right.
And it's funny because like all the things we're saying, we're going in the opposite direction about like. This is what you have to do for success, and this is what people are doing right now. We're going the opposite direction. Like we don't want to talk to people anymore. We just want to text them. But you should now. I feel like I want to talk to more people. Like I'm very big on that. I want to talk to people all the time because people who are doing e-com and like digital marketing or investing or like some like the new kind of newer stuff or in the tech space, they have the information. There's no books yet. Even sometimes a YouTube video before like a YouTuber makes it, by that time the information is already out there. So I want to know it earlier. I'm very big on understanding like what's a new algorithm for Instagram, like what's happening new on Facebook, what new technology is coming out, and I can't wait until it hits like Time Magazine or something. It's way too late by that point.
Right.
So you have to talk to more people on a consistent basis. You have to have a community. So I'm very big on that. So you got to talk to, and we're moving away from talking to people. And then now people are spending more time in leisure activities, but you actually have less time to do that, unfortunately, because you have a global competition and your job's not safe. So just think about what you're doing and always think about where society wants to take us and what's required for success. They're always diametrically opposed. That is the paradox and the mindfuck of life. So if everyone's doing everything, and that means you have to go the exact opposite path of like what it takes to be successful. And 2020 is a great example of that. But that's why, we have obviously the contest we're running through NutriFit, and one of the things we're doing obviously is we have access to the Slack group that we have at AZOTH. And one of the things I immediately wanted to do, and I've talked about before, I always want to get some of like the high performers that I know that are really into self-development. I find those customers because I talk to them and I'm like, oh, dude, I think we should all be in a group together. I think we should talk. Because you're doing yard sales, you're doing podcasts, this person has a retail store. I want everyone to talk to each other, because if I look at my customers, I'm like, yeah, a lot of them. And that's why actually I started selling a nootropic, because I knew that was the fastest way for me to find. It was such a specialty product. It's not like vitamin C. So I knew the people that buy nootropics are people who are looking for productivity and they want to get more shit done, are biohacking. And those people are also doing investing, digital marketing, e-com, entrepreneurship. So I knew that was the fastest way for me to connect people who are doing cool shit with their life. And that's why we went into nootropics right away. And people always ask, when's the sports nutrition? I was like, honestly, we're probably not doing that ever. So we immediately took all those customers that I need you to talk. And so that's why we created the Slack group and what we're doing right now through NutriFit Challenge. So that's a really cool thing that, we have going on with the transformation that you're doing through NutriFit, a community, and then also giving them access to ebooks. So people want to join. There's a text. What's the text code again that people can join if they want to join the NutriFit Challenge?
Yeah, you could text transform to 29071 and you'll be prompted with the text to join the Slack group. So you can meet us all in there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually consistently adding new ebooks in there every week. Every Sunday I purchase more. So that's like a big thing for me. So check it out. I know some people don't take advantage of it, but please do. Is actually we spend a lot of effort, time, and money on it. I actually reach out to some of the authors a lot of times, and I'm like, hey, So you'd be surprised because I reached out to Seth Godin. Obviously, he's a marketing genius, and I reached out, I sent him an email. Yeah, and he emailed me back, and we got talking for a little bit, and he's a really cool dude and supports what we do. And you picked their brain. And I was like, hey man, I read this chapter. I want to talk to you more about it. He's like, yeah, for sure. Give me a call. And you'd be so surprised how people right now who are, doing cool things in marketing, and because it's new to them, so they're really excited to share it. And that's really cool. So like talk more. That's my big thing today. Like don't sit behind your cell phone and just text people. Pick up the phone. I know it's really old school, but I'm a really big proponent. I call people all the time. I was like, hey man, what's going on? Or for a while before the pandemic, I had a little thing that I would do where I don't want to, although I'm like more introverted with my time, I realized it was like not good for my personal growth, because I'm always eating like in Tupperware a lot of times. So I like to cook my meals, and I was eating by myself, and I was just like killing some time. So I watch sports or something. I was like, dude, this is a colossal waste of time. I should talk to people. So I was like, well, I'm eating anyways. I'm not working at this point. I might just eat with someone else. So I had this concept where I have one meal a day with some random, like I'm not talking about a stranger, but someone who I haven't talked to in a while. And being in Boston is great because so many cool people here. So I hit up everyone on Sunday. I make a list of like someone who I haven't reached out to or talked to in a while. So either I'll most of the time meet them in person, or I haven't talked to them. I'll put them on a phone conference. Like, hey man, I want to grab a coffee and lunch. Let's do it over Zoom. And I talk to them, and I learn so much in those 45 minutes where I wouldn't have learned shit. So I have this concept: don't eat alone if you can avoid it, and because you're gonna waste that time anyway. So might as well learn something.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of how the Slack group is too, because there's people in there that have been customers for our store for a long time, but then there's also new people, and it's like if we didn't have that Slack group where there was the ability to communicate, I don't know if those people would essentially reach out and talk to stuff that we're talking about. So it's just much more engaging. And it's honestly, it's a confidence boost for people too that are kind of afraid to do that. So I think it's a really cool thing that we have going on with the transformation too.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I know we'll try to find ways to keep the momentum going. So if you're watching this or listening to this after the contest is over, we'll try to do some cool things where NutriFit customers, as customers, we keep building a community. So after this, where and that's I think the cool thing that you offer through your retail store. Obviously, there's supplements that you buy, but there's people who buy supplements. They probably are into self-development. And like, what's next for them? And that's always my thing is like someone takes a supplement for focus, and then what? Now I have the focus, but what do I do with it? was like,
Right.
okay, this is just the gateway. There's way more you want to learn investing. You want to talk to people who are doing cool shit. We have a whole platform for you. So that's why I'm excited, that, we're doing as you're doing it with NutriFit. I think that's where, the post-purchase aspect of like what's next after you take the supplements. I think those are companies that are going to win that have another step now. Like, what should you do next? Just buy more subs? Like, is there anything else I can do?
Right.
So I think that's really cool, man. Yeah, dude, I think we covered a really good ground, man. And I'm excited to, we are going to be finally releasing all of these for people listening. We are recording some of these in batches and going to be releasing these pretty much on every platform possible. So I'm looking forward for the feedback, and
Yeah, for
people
sure.
can always reach out to either you or myself with questions, or even if you want to come on the show, more than happy to have you on.
For sure. Yeah. If you have any questions or want to shoot us a DM, you can always reach me at NutriFit CLE on all social media. Pretty much respond, 24/7. So you can hit me up anytime.
Yeah. Plus, you answer all your chats, right? On your
Yep.
you
For
do, right,
sure.
on
Yeah,
your
you
store,
can.
right? Okay.
Yeah, you can go to the website nfsubs.com. We have a 24/7 chat icon on there, so I'll respond on there. And me and Prady are both obviously in the transformation group. You can hit us up in there anytime too.
Awesome. So good takeaways, and we will be back for more, my friend.
Cool, man. Sounds good.